It's 7:05, so I'll open the meeting. The Town of Cohasset Zoning Board. It's now Tuesday, May 2nd, 1923, 7:05 p.m. We're on another virtual Zoom meeting, and I don't want to take time up immediately, but Cassandra, if the select board can meet in person and the town meeting can meet in person, why can't we?
So part of it is logistics with figuring out presentations from applicants for both the board's viewing and the public's viewing, because the town would like to still be able to have the hybrid option. And we haven't figured out the equipment for how applications would be presented so that
Why do we
everyone can
have to
see.
have a Zoom call-in? Why don't we start meeting in person, and when the town gets its act together, the public can be invited in Zoom. Otherwise, we go back to the way we've operated for 50 years. I find this
That I'm not
cumbersome.
sure.
Do we really want to risk going inside that town hall?
Well, for other reasons. I'm just thinking about health reasons, Mike. We're okay. Whatever else is in there might be catching, but anyway, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand why we're being singled out and prevented from having a live meeting when other boards can meet in person. But maybe I should speak to the chair of the select board. Is that up to him?
I think right now it's up to town management. So Chris.
Okay, well, I'll talk to both then, but not just to Chris. Okay, Jack and Chris. All right. I mean, this just seems another delay. Anyway, we're open for business. The first sitting as a Board of Appeals, and myself, Woody Chidick, as chair, Dave McMorris as vice chair, Matt Watkins, Michael Dickey, and Lee Darst as our associates, and Charlie Higginson is our third regular member, has just joined. Charlie, you're on mute. John Hallen is sitting in for context and advice, our building commissioner. So I think we're ready to go. The first hearing is a continuance from last time, filed by Jamie Suvak at 62 Spring Street to extend a porch and actually cover it without enclosing it, and any other relief as we deem necessary. The applicant is here.
Yes.
Okay. Turn it over to you.
Hi,
Hi.
thanks for having us back. I apologize. I am in bed because I'm recovering from spine surgery. So
Oh, gee,
sorry for
that's
the casual.
something
Man.
small and inconsequential.
So that's why I'm a little casual today, but I apologize.
That's perfectly.
So I think last time we were asked for a couple of more things, and if I could have permission to share my screen.
Please. You have permission.
Okay, so everybody can see this document. There are some more pictures and a drawing that John did to show what this would look like. So first,
I've got a title. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so this is just the view from our front door with the current porch that is there. Across the street, you can see it's just the train tracks that is across. And that is a picture of the front of the house as it is now. That's just another view, and you can see where the stakes are, is where we want to extend the porch, just to have an actual view of what we're looking to do. That shows what is on the right side of our house. That is a 6-unit apartment building. And that is the 2-family that's on the other side of the house. With the similar, that's the type of porch we would be looking to put on the front. So that gives an idea of what we're looking to, what it would look like on our house. And that's just another view from the front of the porch to show kind of what's in front of us. There's not another house or, other things like that. So what John did here was draw the picture of what we're looking to do from the measurements that he had done. I don't know if you want to say anything about.
The porch itself would still be 7 feet by 29.5 feet, which would go from edge to edge of the existing house and would come out the 7.5 feet. The existing stairs would pretty much stay exactly where they were. They may go a little bit wider, but they wouldn't go beyond where they are right now.
And that's it. That's what we brought today.
Okay, I think one of the things we are going to need, this is good, and I'll let the board ask questions, but we are going to need dimensions. I mean, how tall is this? I mean, I know I can see this visually, but Jamie just, just mentioned that the porch is going to extend X number of feet. I'd like to see that in writing.
Okay.
And kind of just spec'd out.
Okay, we provided you first off with a drawing of the property by our surveyor, and the surveyor did depict that it was 7.5 by 29 feet on that depiction with our application. The only thing you wouldn't have right now is just the height of the roof.
Height, yeah,
I mean, but that's it. It goes between
okay,
the first floor and the second floor. It doesn't extend above the second floor windows. It would be similar to the building that was,
right. We talked about this before.
yeah,
I'd like to see all the dimensions of this.
okay.
This is what we're used to getting
But
that. in every
Other than
application.
the height of the porch, what other dimensions are you looking for? Because I don't want to have to come back for another time for another set of dimensions. So I'd like to have what is missing, what is deficient in our application, so we don't have to, build
I
up.
think just to be sure, the size of the 4 or 5 support pillars. I don't know if they're, 4 by 8 or whatever they are, but just put them in and how tall, where will the pitched roof connect to the house? What's that height, and what's the height of the pitched roof as it slopes down, at its end? Just some specifications so that we can incorporate them into a decision. And if we do approve this, we'd like to have that be part of the record.
Okay.
Because when we come to a decision on the case, to Woody's point, we typically include the materials that were submitted in the filing as part of, the packet. I was just looking back, and it looks like last time we were looking for, some sort of architectural drawing to clarify what it was exactly that you were looking for. And I think we can visualize it now, but without the dimensions, to accompany the written decision. It just helps to clarify it. And the other thing I had in my notes here was just that we needed an updated front setback on the application itself. I don't have the application right in front of me, but I think we had a question about the front setback.
I don't remember that question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've listed the existing front setback as 22.4 and the proposed at 15.4. In other words, coming out the 7 feet. What is the 22.4 measured without the existing porch and without the existing stairway?
No.
The 22 feet, it would go down to 15 because of the 7-foot porch.
But you've already got a 7-foot porch. So your setback should be measured from the existing porch, presumably.
Yeah, and it's important because if it's over 20 feet, you're conforming, and if it's under, you're non-conforming, and you want to be non-conforming.
Okay.
Oh, you mean the existing porch?
The existing setback.
It's a setback, yeah. So you have a conforming house the way you've written it. I don't think you do. But the
No,
way
we don't.
The statistics or the metrics show, it shows that you have a conforming house that you're making non-conforming. To Dave's point, that puts you in the variance territory, but I don't think that's what's going on here. I think you have a non-conforming house.
I think that's correct. So we have to fix that on the,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it has to be corrected.
okay.
Dave, is that what you were driving at?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
You know,
just
it's a-
helps with the application, yeah, I'm not sure what.
Yeah,
What needs to
we have
be
to go-
changed. so.
Okay. All right. We can go look
Well,
back
you
and-
know, if you need a little guidance, you're welcome to see John or Cassandra. Cassandra deals with this stuff, you know, week after week, and I think she could kind of help you at least point to the right structure and dimensions. I don't see this as I don't think it's a crisis. It's just that I think there are some statistics here that are missing or probably not in error and are in error and to your disadvantage.
Okay. Makes sense. We'll go back, fix that.
Woody, if you would like, we can, Cassandra and I can make those adjustments to kind of just put the proper numbers in the proper space
Yeah,
tomorrow. And again, to follow up, I think your suggestion of the height on the section information, we need that for the building permit so that if they get to that point, so that it wouldn't be something that they'd be doing just for you if they, you know, if you guys voted this in, we did it at the building department too. So we can work on that tomorrow, update it and clean it up to get it to the proper distance.
and the procedure for the SUVAC's benefit is that we get all the facts that we can in front of us, continue the hearing for a draft decision that we could then deliberate on and vote on. But the attachments, the exhibits have to be accurate and
Makes sense.
complete. I mean, we can't, once we close or once we deliberate and file a decision, that's it.
Yeah,
Whatever we have in hand is what we go with.
So you need the pillar dimensions, the height of the roof and the distance of the pitch from the house.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful. And I think John, as he said, I mean, he's dealt with this for, you know, years and years. So I think he could give you some rather simple, you know, some actionable advice that isn't going to be terribly complicated, but it's stuff we need.
okay. Thank you.
That's my takeaway. I don't know. John, is that right?
Yeah, again, I think most of the information is there, but we just have to put it in the right spot for you guys to
Yeah.
to view it. You know, I think at least with the information they get today, you get a pretty good sense of
Oh,
what needs to
indeed.
be.
It's just that we're not used to dealing with sketches, you
Yeah.
know, conceptual sketches. That's all. And you aren't either, because you're going to need something more specific to issue a building permit. So it all has to be done, might as well be done now.
And are you gonna have to go back to the engineer? Or to the surveyor?
I think with that would be more for the, oh, sorry, I'm on these pain meds and I lose my train of thought. What is the person
Surveyor.
the person doing the work?
Contractor?
Thank you,
Contractor.
thank you. That we'll have to go back to the contract.
Okay,
It's rough.
Okay, how about
Yeah.
other questions on the part of the board?
I don't have any.
Anybody else? Charlie, got any issues or just information requests?
Nope. I'm writing the decision.
Okay, well, I guess if anybody's got any any requests, it's going to be you. Okay, how about Matt, Mike? We okay?
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward, Woody. I don't have any additional questions.
Okay. So I would make a motion that we continue this until our next hearing at the beginning of June, at which time we will have a draft decision to deliberate on and vote on. I mean, I think this looks pretty cut and dry, and if you guys can get together, or one of you, maybe Jamie, you can't, but maybe Michael can, get together with John and just prepare whatever we need to incorporate into the decision.
Yeah, that would be
Then
really
we'll be
helpful.
ready to
Thank you.
go.
Yeah,
We'll be
we're
ready
almost.
to go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, thank you. So I've made a motion to continue this hearing until June, what is it, 4th, Cassandra, or am I wrong?
It is the 6th.
June 6th. Okay, continue to June 6th.
I'll
Motion's
second
made.
that motion.
Seconded. Okay, all in favor, Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Larry Vincent, I.
Lee Darside.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Great. So we're now going to move to number 2, which is 20 Parking Way. Again, to extend an existing deck and other relief as necessary. Filed by Heidi Condon of HC Design on behalf of Dr. Roger Pompeo. So is Heidi or one of her associates available? I guess, do you know offhand, Cassandra? if she's-
My Zoom froze for a second. Yes, Heidi is here. My Zoom was frozen and I couldn't do anything for a second. Hold on. Have offered to promote her.
Should we circle back if this is,
Got her.
Okay.
Good evening.
hi,
Sorry, it was hard to get through. This is a project at 20 Parking Way. It's a building Dr. Roger Pompeo built several years ago in 2009. What he'd like to do is add a 6-foot by 26-foot deck. And it's in the setbacks, if you can see on the drawings that we provided. The goal here is that it's
why
covering.
don't you reference Heidi, help us, which you submitted 3
I
drawings in the
believe-
site plan, which one are you?
Yeah,
referencing?
you should have a site plan A1-1. And the A1-2 should show you the deck plan, the deck elevation and the volume.
I've got an AB. I've got an A12. and
The A,
Oh,
the
yeah.
AB, yeah, the AB is the
Site
as-built
plan.
from, Kavanagh Consulting. And
Yeah.
that is from 2010.
Yeah,
And you should see on the second drawings that you noted should have our site, our footprint that shows the new deck at the 6 feet by 26'4" in plan. You have that? And you should also have the elevations of the deck with the volume calculation.
Yeah, what we don't have is a west side elevation per se. We've got the drawings that deal with a south and north elevation of the deck. But I
And
don't think,
then there's a front one right above it. It should be above it. I don't know if you can see that.
called new deck.
Yes, the new, so on one side, you can see that the deck is approximately, you know, will be just under 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
and then it slopes, so it's a slightly over 6 feet. So you have the access panel and the apron. Can you see that, the north elevation you discussed?
I see existing building north elevation, 2-inch to rail and 36.
Exactly, so that is showing from the existing building over, that is showing the deck. So the deck will be at the new deck is at the same level as the existing covered deck. And so on the one side that's close to kind of where the old shoe, the 1-story shoe repair places, you know, kind of
Yeah.
at the top, that's where it will be 6 feet, 2.5 inches for the top of the actual railing. But the deck itself is at the existing height, that's 38 inches off the grade in that corner.
Sloping down to 22 inches.
Exactly, yes.
I'm just curious why you didn't give us is the new entrance or the present, I was a little confused. The west side, the west elevation.
We're not changing the entrance to the existing deck at all. This entire addition is just coming off the existing deck.
And it doesn't have an entrance to it. In the
No, because
building.
you get up onto the existing deck and then you just walk into it. So there is an existing deck. You can see, if you look at your AB plan that Kavanaugh Consulting did, he calls it existing porch. That is to remain. All we're doing is adding to that existing porch a 6 foot by 26 foot 4-inch deck that will be open air. It's at the same level. It's basically in the middle of that current covered porch. And it's a space that Dr. Pompeo would like for his patients as they're waiting, for himself. His concern is with his older patients after 2.5 years of COVID, they're not comfortable in a waiting room. So his goal here was just to provide an open deck, an open air off an existing porch. So all I'm doing is extending the height of that existing porch in the middle of what is now a garden space.
So is this the porch that faces Parking Way or James Lane?
Yes, exactly. It faces Parking Way.
Okay. Can you tell me what buildings you use to calculate the front setback?
We worked with John Hallen, and these are the setbacks that he proposed for us to use. John, is that something you can kind of talk about? Because
I'm sorry, I heard part of the question, but
when we met, this is now months ago, you and I talked about the setbacks with Dr. Pompeo, and we felt that 6.25 setback off Parking Way was a relevant setback that's already along Parking Way and the buildings that are there.
I mean, there are some other buildings on Parking Way that are close. We don't have the averages of those buildings. I think the other one would, we can that backside line in, and next building would be the drop on the backside there.
I know where I got confused. Heidi, you said that the front of the building is on James Lane.
So,
Is that right? Is that what you said, or am I mistaken?
that is what Kavanaugh Consulting told us when I discussed it with them, that they considered that the front.
Well, if they did, the application shows the front setback going from 14 feet down to 8. That would seem to be the west side setback. But I don't know what's front and what's side, because
I think they were telling us that it's basically a corner lot. But they considered the front being for the full setback to be along James Lane. But
so
they,
but the setback is not changing on James Lane, is it?
no, and I'm not getting any closer to James Lane. I'm getting closer to Parking Way.
Right, but your application says that you're getting closer
Oh.
to James Lane.
Then sorry, that's our fault. We made that. We're really getting closer. I think the confusion was between Kavanaugh turning into Merrill and getting the 2 front setbacks. But we were told it's a corner lot. We're not, to clarify, we're not touching or getting any closer to James Lane or Way. We're getting closer towards Parking Way.
Right, but right now, well, I'm confused in terms of what your present front setback is. And what's the side setback? You listed side setbacks. Number 1 is 10 feet required, and number 2, 10 feet required, and both of them are marginally exceeded, I mean minusculely. And that is the front setback that's shrinking. You're going from conforming to non-conforming.
I'll have to double check with Merrill, because that was a number that we discussed with them, and I would have to double check how they got that number. Because
Okay,
that was the number we were given.
I don't think we could proceed very far with an inconsistency between the application and drawings. They don't match up.
So I think I need to get a little bit more information then from Merrill / Kavanaugh, because that's where we
Yeah, I mean, if
off of this.
I'm going to make an assumption, but it's probably a bad one. No, it's not a bad one. I'm going to make an assumption that you're not going from a conforming setback of some sort to a non-conforming, but you may be. And I think we need to know that.
So one question is this a corner lot? And this is something that I haven't gotten a really clear answer. And if it's a corner lot and I have 2 front yard setbacks, then the part of the building that is facing Parking Way is non-conforming. Because the current is 13.5 from that property line. And that you can see on AB. Does that make sense?
Doesn't. Yeah, but it doesn't match the application. 13.5 and AB, the Parking Way, you're saying?
Yes, so the discussion we were trying to have, and I haven't really gotten a clear answer, and maybe you can help, is this a corner lot? And is it a corner lot? Then right now, what faces James Lane is conforming, but right now what's facing Parking Way is not conforming, what was built in 2010.
I think if one side of your building goes onto a parking lot and the other goes onto a way, the part that goes onto the way should be the front. But I mean, you know, one of the problems, Heidi, is if you look at drawing X1, EX11, it's got the building, but it doesn't have any of the dimension. It doesn't have any of the lot lines. And again, we would need to see that EX1-1 with the lot lines. And if it's relevant, as John was kind of alluding to, any buildings, at least on this side, that are within, what is it, John, 200 feet or what am I? We do expect to see other buildings, but I don't see any lot lines here. So it's really hard to figure out
I'm not sure which one you're looking at because,
EX 1-1. Existing footprint.
oh, okay. I mean, we were going off Kavanaugh Consulting's original site plan, but it sounds like, would you like that updated so it shows all of the neighboring buildings?
Well, even if you didn't do that, you've got to, if you're going to show us a building, you've got to show us where it's situated on its lot, the existing, the before. You've shown
And,
an
and that's
after.
AB, the drawing AB has not changed. That's the existing conditions.
Well, then what is the purpose of this EX 1-1 plan?
I think it's just showing what we drew as the existing footprint because it's changed slightly from what was originally proposed, but it didn't change the setbacks. So the as-built of the actual building is slightly different than what was proposed, but nothing that is making it an increased nonconformity. So we are saying AB are is the existing footprint and it shows all the setbacks. You're correct, it doesn't show the neighboring buildings, and that's something we can ask Merrill to add for us.
It also doesn't label the streets. I mean, if it's a corner lot, what's it on the corner of?
Well, according to Kavanaugh Consulting, James Way and Parking Way is what they considered a corner lot, but they gave us the average of that, of the setback that we're showing, which is the 6.25. But it
Okay.
sounds like I need one drawing from them that will clarify what that is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look
I
at,
mean,
here's, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
If your required front setback is 6.25, then, you know, you're not going to really have much of a problem because you're going to be conforming.
Where did that?
But the way you get a required setback of 6.25 is by averaging the two adjacent buildings if they're within the right space. But it doesn't show those buildings. We don't know how they're calculating it. The plot plan, the site plan doesn't label the streets. It's not even clear from up in the corner, the locus, it's not even clear that there is a parking way. It shows James Lane and it shows a parking lot.
The parking lot's not away. But also, I guess to Dave's point, if you look at this, the western side, where on this Kavanaugh plan, the deck comes, the existing porch is 13.5 feet from the lot line, and your new deck is going to be 8 feet. So you're
The new deck is 6, yes.
yeah,
When we
it's 6 feet. So you're now 8 foot setback as opposed to 13.5.
Yes,
And the side setback, it looks like it's the present porch conforms and the new deck does not. But I'm not sure that this form was filled out correctly. But I mean, that's the way I would read the form, and I may be confusing everybody else, but I think might be creating a nonconformity.
I think there's either, it seems to me from your application that your project is conforming on a already conforming structure. So I don't know that you need a special permit, but that would only be true if the front setback is an actual front setback, and if it's calculated at 6.25 properly. Because if it's 6.25, if it's the required front setback under our zoning bylaw, and you're going to an 8 foot setback, then you're not having any non-conforming issues. But I just can't, from the paperwork that we have, it's impossible to tell what the front setback is, whether it's a corner lot, how it's calculated, all those things.
I don't see anything in John Kavanaugh's plan that uses the statistic 6.25.
It's up in.
I think that's what I need to get them to clarify. So I think I need one clear site plan that is updated
Oh, I
from.
see, up in
down
that
there.
corner legend there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the only thing I have. But I can certainly ask them to clarify this, showing the existing structures that are neighboring the property.
This is why our requirement is in fact that site plans include neighboring properties if they're within so many feet, couple hundred feet. Because I don't know where they get the 9.2 and the 3.5 feet of neighboring. I can't think of a neighboring structure. Well, it could be that shoe store or whatever you say, the
Yeah,
handyman,
repair.
or whatever, could be, but I don't see it and I don't know how far away it is and I don't know what's
Well,
on the other side.
it sounds like if I can request a continuation and I will get a very clear site plan from Merrill showing
Yeah.
the neighboring buildings and the setbacks with a clear explanation from them how they got to that 6.25.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad project, but it's the numbers start to jump around a little bit and
No, I understand.
raise question marks.
Yeah, we were trying to keep it simple, but we clearly don't have enough information on the site plan to justify the numbers that we have.
Okay, and and when you do that, I would urge you to put the lot lines in on EX1, the existing, even though you have Cavanaro's site plan.
Okay,
The existing footprint should be shown relative to its lot lines. It's an easier plan to read than, it's a larger scale.
sure.
But at any rate, there is, there were front and back and north and south and it's a little hard to track which was which.
Well, I think if I get one updated site plan, it's gonna be much easier for all of us to follow what the
But
proposal.
also do me a favor and take a look at your own application, page 2.
Okay,
If you need advice, you're certainly free to go to John or somebody else, but I'm not sure that these numbers square with Cavanaro's plan or what you're doing, square precisely.
all right, we'll double check our
And then-
north, south, east, and west.
Yeah, so it sort of created a sort of question mark as to does this conform or doesn't it, and so on and so forth.
Sure,
As I say, it's not a problem with the project as much as, unless you're creating a nonconformity.
okay. We'll get that site plan, because I think that will answer the questions and make it very clear.
Yeah. Or do you have other suggestions for Heidi in terms of, we'll move to continue this until June 6th, but are there other anomalies or anything that you'd like to? Anybody?
I'm still a little confused about what the other way, about parking way.
Yeah, is a parking lot. Well, I'm not even sure. I don't know. I can look up, I don't know if I want to take the time now, but to see if this was an accepted way. I doubt it. I think it's a parking lot. And of course, any parking lot of that size, you have to have a ingress and egress, and that doesn't make it a way from a standpoint of setbacks or.
So that's something Merrill can clarify for us then.
Yeah. And if they believe that parking way is a way and is the front, I'd like to understand how they kind of came to that conclusion, that's all.
Okay,
Because it says frontage, the length of line dividing a lot from the right of way of the street on which it bounds. This is to be measured at the right of way boundary and not at the center line of the street, but they're all talking about street. Every time you hear
Yeah.
front, it's street. And whether parking way qualifies as street is questionable, but I don't know, I haven't looked it up.
I'll ask them for clarification.
Yeah, okay.
All right,
So board, would you agree that we should continue this hearing until June 6th? And if so, I'd make such a motion.
Seconded.
Okay, moved and seconded, all in favor, Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Higginson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Mike Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, I.
Okay, okay, we'll see you, Heidi, on June
Great.
6th.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. The next three hearings are linked, all filed by the same applicant, KD Custom Builders, for 3 lots on 94 Black Horse Lane. They've requested a continuance until June. Is that right, Cassandra? I saw
Yes, that's correct.
a letter
Correct.
dated today, I think, wasn't it, or yesterday?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, from Adam Brodsky. So unless the board wishes to, I don't know, deal with this one now, I would recommend that we accept the applicant's request to continue this until June. So
Second.
anybody object? Otherwise, I'll make a motion and we have to probably continue each of the 3 appeals, even though we've merged the presentations. I think they're separate appeals, so we have to vote on continuing each of these 3 appeals.
I think
So
that's a good idea, just in case.
just to be safe, yeah. So I would make a motion to continue the appeal of the building inspector's decision on 94 Black Horse Lane, Lot A. That's now been put
I'll second.
forth. We have a second from Matt. All in favor? Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Everybody else? Charlie?
Charlie Higginson, aye.
Yeah,
Lee
okay.
Darcey.
Yeah, and
Michael Dickey, aye.
Mike, great. Appreciate it. The next decision is that I make a motion to continue the appeal of the building inspector's decision at 94 Black Horse Lane, Lot D. So I've made that motion. Is it seconded?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave
Charlie
McMorris,
Higginson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Matt
Um,
Watkins.
All righty. And the third appeal, I'll make a motion to continue. It is appeal of the building inspector's decision at 94 Black Horse Lane, Lot D. So that motion's been made. Is it seconded?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, Woody Chitik, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Charlie Higginson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Michael Dickey, aye.
No.
Okay. So now we'll move. We're a little ahead of the schedule, Cassandra, but still. We now move to 63 Nichols Road LLC to reinforce a damaged retaining wall with a new wall in the floodplain. Is there anyone here representing the applicant?
Yes, I'm pulling Carmen forward.
Okay. So let's promote Carmen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Promoted.
All right, you're now the boss.
It's nice to see
Not
you
that kind of
again.
promotion. Sorry.
So Carmen Hudson from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I am representing tonight the owners of the property at 63 Nichols Road, 63 Nichols Road LLC. What the project consists of, and actually it's almost done because it was done as an emergency situation. It would received an emergency certification from conservation. John Highland was also there. During one of the storms, we had this portion of, and I'm sorry, I think I'm talking and I am not sharing my screen, or am I? I am so sorry. Let me share my screen. Sharing is caring. Okay, there we go. So this is the site plan that you have in front of you. This property has Nichols Road is way down here at the bottom of the page. It's a very long driveway that goes right next to Little Harbor, and on the north side of the driveway there is salt marsh and wetland. And this is the only means of vehicular access to the property. During one of our storms about maybe a month and a half ago, a couple of months ago, this portion of the wall collapsed. This was an existing, it was actually a landscape wall, and you can see this in these pictures right here. So they used landscape wall materials for this, and it was in a wet environment with also water pressures, and during a storm, it just couldn't take it. I'm actually amazed that it lasted this long. So this portion of the wall collapsed. And when John Hallen went to visit the site, he also noticed, as well as us, that the remaining portion of the wall was in risk of collapsing. So we received an emergency certification to construct the wall, to reconstruct it. And what this wall is really in the areas that it was collapsed, it was just built, and it was built of this modular blocks that are filled with stone. So the blocks are 4 feet in width, and they were placed right in front of the existing damaged wall, and where it was collapsed over the area where it was collapsed. So what this effectively did was it increased the footprint of this causeway by 4 feet because of the width of the depth of this blocks. This driveway is almost entirely within the floodplain. If you can see this black dashed line up here, that is a limit of this of the floodplain. Everything down from there is within the floodplain up to this location. So we were increasing the footprint of the causeway by 4 feet within the floodplain. However, this is an existing use and an existing structure in the floodplain. Also, I wanted to point out that this is the building setback, and this portion of the wall that collapsed that we rebuilt with this 4-foot blocks, it is within the building setbacks, and it was higher than 3 feet in height. However, once again, it was an existing condition. We thought that we needed relief under Section 8.7 for an increase of an existing nonconformity and an existing nonconforming use and structure. But also there is that section in the floodplain section, Section 9, that allows the construction of a driveway in the floodplain. However, we thought that this was primarily something that needed zoning relief under Section 8 for non-conforming structures and uses. So that was really the gist of it. The majority of this wall has already been constructed because it was done under an emergency situation. From what I understand, only this section of the wall hasn't been constructed yet. I looked in the zoning bylaw trying to see if I found something that would allow this as an emergency situation. I didn't see it, but if you know of something that would allow this as as an emergency situation, that would be great to know. Otherwise, I would love to answer any questions at this point.
Okay, and the wall itself that collapsed,
Mhm.
Merrill said it's over 10 years old. They don't know how old, but from the
No,
looks of it, it's probably
yes,
a
so
lot more than that.
yes, and the causeway itself dates back to 1938, but this wall we don't it wasn't bad. It wasn't there in 1938, but it was definitely over 10 years old.
Yeah, and they also go on to say, and not putting words in your mouth, that if a structure has been in existence without appeals for a period of 10 years,
Mhm.
then it's considered for zoning as a legally non-conforming structure. So,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, I think you're on safe ground there. Do you have a point of view as to why you think it's 8.7 that you need relief from as opposed to 9.7F?
Well, just because the use of a driveway in the floodplain is allowed under a special permit, and I could not find any filings at all in the record for this. So therefore, this is an existing non-conforming use. So since we are extending it or altering it, I thought that it was covered under section 8.7.
Yeah, I don't think the 9.7 F, I mean, it gives you the right to build the driveway, but it doesn't necessarily give you the right to build the structure next to the driveway.
Exactly. So I really
Oh,
thought
good
that the
point, good point,
8.7.
okay.
Mhm. Thank you, David.
Yeah, I mean, this, well, whether the bylaw allows or doesn't allow in an emergency situation, the Conservation Commission and Building Commissioner felt that an emergency existed and that something needed to be done. And from the looks of it, I can understand why, even though some of it's been reconstructed, but
I think if we found something that was offensive to the standards of a special permit, we can make them change it or take some of it down, but I don't see that as an issue in this case.
I don't either. I mean, it's a pretty fragile, let me put it this way. The causeway is potentially very fragile to tidal actions and things. And I could see a particular storm, easterly storm or something coming and wiping this, section out. So I didn't have any problem with what they're proposing. Let me put it that way. But I don't know if John's still on the line. I hope he is. I don't know.
We're here.
John, do you have any issues with what they're proposing from a construction standpoint, from a survivability or protection?
No, again, looking at your plans, the lower part, we able them to rebuild under the Emergency Act, one, to prevent any further damage or erosion into the wetlands. And because the next thing was going to be the guardrail and then the road that was going to collapse. The portion that they haven't worked on yet, up on the upper left-hand corner of the plan, there is the I observed quite an erosion to place and wash out into the wetlands. That suggested that they come to the Zoning Board of Appeals to ask for permission to extend the stone wall retaining wall there to prevent any further damage or washout into the wetlands.
Is the Conservation Commission, or has it, or is it likely to insist on some mitigation measures or removal of some of the stone, and if there was mortar there that's...
We actually have received Conservation Commission approval on Thursday. Unfortunately, the order of conditions is not available yet, but the plan was approved.
Okay, I'm not shocked by any means, but
and as well as the conservation agent. The conservation agent was involved in the emergency issuance and aware of the project.
because there's a lot of stuff that's fallen down into the marsh. I mean, that's not our concern. It's the Conservation Commission's concern, but there's, lots of debris.
Yeah, that has been removed also and cleaned up.
Okay.
This is kind of one of those rare cases where we don't have to worry about what it might look like because we know what it looks like, or at least the neighbors do. So has there
Neighbors
been
probably
any,
never see it.
well,
Well, there's that one house.
curious if there has been any response from any of the neighbors about what's been built and what will be built.
No, I have not heard anything through the ZBA filing. I submitted this, I think it was almost concurrently with the notice of intent. And I have not heard anything. Once again, I was present for the hearing on Thursday with the Conservation Commission, and there were no abutters at that point. Nobody spoke against the project. But just out of curiosity, I just wanted to know this is actually the first emergency certification that I had. Is there anything in the bylaw that would allow this to take place without having to file for a special permit if it's in an emergency situation.
Over to you, John.
Oh, there we go. The emergency situation, you know, in the building code, you are allowed to do this. They did contact me before they got too far along, and we did review it. So I think mostly what you're in front of the board for now is almost the extension portion of it, and there, which is not under the emergency portion of it.
Okay, so that little piece. Okay.
Okay. So board,
Thank you, John.
what are some of your takeaways on this one? I'm asking the board.
Conrad, did you say, I heard you say that there were no abutters at the Conservation Commission meeting? Was there, have they given like an order of conditions, or is there or how are things left at that meeting?
So they closed the hearing, they issued, so when they close the hearing, they vote on issuing an order of conditions. However, the physical order of conditions has to be drafted. And when the agent sends us the order of conditions, so when she mails it or when we go pick it up, then the order of conditions is considered issued. However, she hasn't drafted the order of conditions yet, so we cannot, I normally try to give you a copy of the order of conditions when available, but unfortunately it's not available just yet. But the vote has taken place already on Thursday to approve the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Matt, just to follow up, we do have a verbal from the agent. She is out of town for a few days, and I know it's on our list of things to complete when she gets back. So we have touch base as this project has been ongoing, and the order of conditions was pretty generic. I think most of the conditions that they put on the map, most of it was already done. So, and they followed those procedures. So I think that she's back in town.
Okay, great.
Oh, how about others? How about?
I know we referred to it as an emergency certification, but was that emergency certification just for our documentation purposes? I guess, is that something that's issued from you or from conservation?
That was from conservation. I did issue a bill for the structure to go along with their emergency certification. So the engineer was able to submit plans of what he was doing, how he was doing it, what they were using for fill, and then we issued the permit based on that for that area. And then again, that's when we agreed to that. The emergency didn't extend to the upper portion, and that they'd need relief of the floodplain for that, and to come back through the normal channels.
Oh, okay, okay. Mike Dickey, you got anything, or Lee, or Charlie?
I'm not sure if I missed it. Was there ever a permit for the original retaining wall?
I don't believe there was a building permit for the original retaining wall. It might just have been done under a conservation or the Chapter 91. But again, I looked in the records and did not see it, a building permit originally taken.
Okay, thank you.
I looked at it. It looked like a very impressive operation. I had one question. What is a gravity wall?
So this wall is a gravity wall because it's all the weight of the stone that is placed inside these 4-foot blocks that is keeping it down. So it's a very heavy wall that is filled with stone, very, very deep. It's 4 feet in depth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Dickey?
I don't have any questions. I think it's relatively straightforward.
Yeah, that would be my take, I guess. So I would I mean, unless we have other questions, is there anybody, Cassandra, in the audience who wishes to be promoted?
I don't believe so. Nobody's raising their hand and there's no one in the Q&A.
Okay, well, then I would make a motion to continue this until June 6th, at which time we will not only have a draft decision, but also be the beneficiary of the order of conditions from Concom. But unless there's something that nobody's anticipating, it sounds like this will be not really sort of influence the finding under H7B, which is that it's not significantly more detrimental to the neighborhood. In fact, it's probably very beneficial in terms of the natural environment, as well as the practical side of things. And if this causeway ceases to exist, so does access, which nobody would want to see. So I'd make a motion to continue this subject, not subject to, but presuming that we will get a conservation order of conditions that we can incorporate. And I'll leave it up to the drafter. I don't know, Dave, how you feel. Should this be entirely an H7B, ignoring 9.7F, or should we incorporate both sections and a finding under each?
I would say probably both sections. I mean, the driveway, it is kind of an essential part of the driveway.
Yeah,
It's not the actual driveway itself, so I think just to cover everything, we may as well include both.
okay, all right. So I'll make a motion to continue this until June 6th.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Darrell Higginson, aye.
Lee Darst,
Mike Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Okay, moved and all right, so that's moved. So we have one more hearing, and again,
Thank you so
Cassandra-
much. Have a
Okay,
good
you're
night.
welcome, Carmen. Thank you. This one is well advanced over the published timetable. I know they're warned to sort of stand by, but this is an appeal filed by Barbara and Kevin Wren requesting a zoning enforcement at 46 Black Rock Road because of kind of unsightly equipment and other things on the neighboring property. Are they available?
The attorney who helped to file the application is here. He's coming forward.
Okay, great.
And the applicant themselves are here.
Okay, good. We'll let them get organized. Okay, so we have Attorney Mitchell and Barbara Wren, the applicant or appellant, I should say. There may be, well, we'll get to it. There may be sort of two different perspectives in this, but why don't you, you're bringing the appeal, Attorney Mitchell, why don't you lead off and help us a little bit with the timeline, because I have today a letter that goes back almost a month and a half from John Hallen, who says that there are no zoning violations in the property, that these have all been addressed. But why don't you take us to where, not so much what might have been 3 months ago, but where we stand today? How much of this property has been, in your estimation, improved according to the bylaw and not? And we'll hear from John Hallen and other interested parties, but maybe you could give us the context.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Mitchell, Ornberger, DeLisi, and Harris, on behalf of the appellants, Barbara and Kevin Wren. I think some recent photographs that were taken on April 22nd have been circulated to the board members. That is the current condition of the property.
Could you do
Showing
some
that-
screen sharing?
I cannot. I do not have those up for you guys. I thought that those were being distributed, or am I mistaken?
No, they were distributed, but it would be helpful if we could follow along visually, follow your words visually. Cassandra, do we have those?
They were distributed to the board. I don't have the ability to screen share and also take the minutes.
Oh,
Well, maybe let me do it this way. For the pictures that were sent in today, there were 3. And do the board members have copies of those?
but we can't call them up. I can't. I
We,
have to exit.
I don't see them.
I don't think we received them today.
We don't have any from today. We have
Yeah.
some that were in our packets that we retrieved last week.
But they were in black and white and almost
black and white.
impossible to read.
I did not receive any photos today as any sort of submission.
So the photographs that are attached to the original appeal, Mr. Chairman, are those not clear?
I'm looking at the original appeal. They're clear enough. Why don't you start here? And I don't know, your photographs that you say you sent today, I think I might have seen them, but then these are not they.
No, they're not. And I believe, actually, Mr. Chairman, you did respond to me that you did receive them.
Yeah, and I'd ask Cassandra to circulate them to the board.
I had circulated the ones from the 28th. I didn't receive any today.
Are these different from the 28th?
But they look,
Ones?
the conditions are pretty much the same. Vehicles and truck beds and so on are still existing on the property at this point in time. So if you go to the packet that I submitted, on the first photograph that's shown there, that white truck bed is still in that position on the property line with the Wrens. It has a little bit more C&D waste in it now than it has in this particular picture. The truck that you see on the right-hand side is actually more clearly shown on the 3rd page. You can see it's disassembled. It has no headlights, no front bumper. There's a tarp over the top of it, and it looks to me the way the tarp is hanging, that there's actually no windshield. I would assume that the tarp is there to prevent water from getting into the cab. That does not look operable to me. There's also a tarp on the right-hand side to the right of that truck that you'll see. And I'm not sure what's under that. If you go to the second photograph, there's a blue truck bed and a white truck bed. Those, again, still exist on the property. They're right on the property line of my client's property. And there's also, at this point in time, the photographs that I distributed today, there's also a lawn tractor that is parked right next to the blue truck bed on the property line. And that I will represent to you is rusted and very dilapidated and does not look to be in an operational condition. So this, I guess I'll back up. This, number one, I have the utmost respect for Mr. Hallen, as does Bill Ornberger, as does Jeff DeLisi. This is just a situation where we just don't agree. He was kind enough to reach out to me when the request was filed. We had a discussion, just couldn't come to an agreement, and here we are. And I'd also like to say that this appeal is not some sort of vendetta against the Harrisons by the Wrens. This has been an ongoing situation. And it looks to me from the letter of the bylaw as well as the intent of the bylaw that these vehicles, half vehicles, lawn tractors, C&D, don't appear to be in the spirit of the bylaw concerning residential properties and storage on residential properties. So these conditions exist. My clients would like the truck and the truck beds and the lawn tractor removed from the property. They are, again, right on the property line with my client's property. And that's the relief that they're seeking today.
And you received back a month and a half ago on March 22nd or thereabouts, a letter from John Hallen, correct?
I did.
Made six or a timeline with 6 points. One of which the implication, pretty strong implication, is that what's on the property or what's remaining on the property are both vehicles and materials involved with the construction of this garage extension or shed.
Well, I guess my response to that would be that the truck that's still there, even though it may have been registered, certainly wouldn't pass inspection. That is still there, and how that would possibly be assisting in any way of the construction of the addition into the garage that the Harrisons are doing right now, I don't see it. In terms of the truck beds, the picture I have from last week, and again, I'll represent this to the board, has what looks like cut plywood and a couple of 2x4s in it, but nothing else. The blue truck bed is covered with a large piece of plywood, so you can't see what's in it. And then the lawn tractor obviously is not part of any sort of construction process. So, I mean, at least in terms of that, I understand that Mr. Harrison told Mr. Hallen that these were being used to store materials for the construction, but the pictures don't seem to reflect that. And in terms of the letter from Mr. Hallen, while I appreciated it, I mean, we're here today because the 14-day deadline wasn't met. And at the time that letter was set, just for procedural purposes, there was no request for zoning enforcement, at least in front of him. The appeal had already been taken.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we are at this point in time. The conditions are similar or almost the same as what the pictures show you. And again, under the provision of the bylaw that's cited in the appeal, it looks to me like, they're in violation of the bylaw and storing.
Why don't you take a minute or two and read us what the actual wording of that section of the bylaw, okay?
Okay, it's
I mean,
section.
I think it's important that we, make a differentiation if we decide to do so between construction and storage of other both vehicles and materials.
Understood. It's section 300-4.3C. And it says open display or open storage of junk shall be prohibited in all districts, including but not limited to unregistered automobiles, worn out, cast off, or discarded articles or materials that are ready for destruction or have been stored or collected for salvage or conversion into some other use. And certainly it's our position that what we have here is open display and open storage of junk.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Hallen indicated that the truck's been registered in Vermont, but as you can see from the pictures, it certainly wouldn't pass inspection. It's pretty disassembled and worn out. As is the lawn tractor, which I'll represent to you, is sitting right next to the blue truck bed. So in terms of these things being some part of the construction project going on right now, I don't see it. My clients don't see it.
Okay, board, how about we can loop back and forth, but I'd like to open it up to the board to ask questions first of Attorney Mitchell, and then we can hear from John Hallen.
So Woody, one thing, if we wanted, I could, it looks like on our town website, the filing has color photos, which represent a little better than what we had in our packets.
Yeah, exactly.
I could share my screen if we determine that that's appropriate, but Yeah, I think my only question would be, so your letter, Attorney Mitchell, where you were asking for enforcement was, it says it was sent electronically and certified mail on the 14th of February, and then
It was also hand delivered, I believe.
And since, you know, the law, by the way, this is just sort of an aside, has shifted a bit, at least with town council. Before it was that one had 14 days to appeal a decision of the building inspector, and a non-decision functioned as a denial. That's since there have been two significant court cases that have overruled that and said in the absence of a decision or written decision, not verbal, written decision, the clock keeps running in terms of allowing an appeal. So there is no, the only thing that triggers off an appeal period is a written decision from the building inspector. So I think they made it on that basis, and that's come up with town council in another situation. But okay, so we have colored photos. What about other board members?
I went out last Friday and happened to go by there. It's not too far from my house. I was walking my dog and I met the homeowners outside, and they took me on a tour of their backyard and showed me all their building and explained to me about the trucks and the different things that they were going to do.
Which homeowners are we talking about?
The Harrisons.
Oh, okay, not the neighborhood.
Not the Wrens.
Wrens,
Yeah.
okay.
They do have a very close living situation, driveway close to where the building is. The Wrens they live right next door to the Harrisons, but their property also there's this piece that runs along the back of the Harrisons property. So not only are they neighbors to one side, they have a strip of land, which I actually don't know how wide it is, that runs along the back of the Harrisons property and separates them from Spindrift, which is off of Forest. So Black Horse to there. So anyway, I walked the land and spoke to the Harrisons, and they showed me all their renovations, and they told me that the offending truck was going to get put back together and painted within a very short period of time. And I believe that they have moved most of the property off of the lot line. However, there are no fences, so there is no real place to shield the bikes and construction, and their whole backyard is under construction with the proposed garage. And the current garage, which there's a picture of, the Harrisons had built a shed off the back, which they got a permit for, to use to store during the time they were starting the other garage. The old garage in the picture is coming down because they're putting in a stormwater drainage in that, and they said that that's coming down very soon, and maybe John Hallen would know when they're taking down the old garage, because they have to put a stormwater drainage system in that exact spot where the old garage is. So then they will be constructing the new garage, and they are well aware that, and I'm sure that their attorney, who I see is in the Q&A, and I had seen that the Harrisons were going to be on. Anyway, they walked me around, showed me everything, and told me what their plans were. So.
Okay. Other board members have at this point questions of Attorney Mitchell, or?
Is there any historical evidence of how long this stuff has been there?
I defer to my client on that one. Barbara?
It's been there quite a while, but since the construction, it's been moved to our property line, and, you know, we do own behind the Harrisons, and I garden back there, and pretty much the whole rear property line is covered with the cast off truck beds and other things that are under tarps. So a while, but only recently moved to the property line.
How would you define a while?
Gosh,
You
I
don't have
don't
to be
know.
accurate. I mean, I don't know whether you're talking about a month or 2 years.
No, I probably, I, maybe a year and a half, but I don't know. Couldn't see the stuff until it was, moved right on the property line. And, it's not really appropriate for a residential neighborhood. It looks more like, auto body shop. And we are our homes are very close. Their driveway, the property line runs down the middle of their driveway. So, it's really quite an eyesore.
Okay, other,
Yeah, and maybe this is a question better answered by the Harrisons, but is the plan that these beat up old trucks are going to be stored in the garage that's being built? And if not, what's the fate of the beat up trucks?
why don't we save that for the Harrisons? It's a great question. Because if the beat up trucks are visible, the garage isn't going to be of any benefit from a visual standpoint. Anybody else? I think we should hear from, I don't know, Dave, what would you suggest? We could either hear from the Harrisons or from John. I mean, I think John, obviously, he's essential to this. It's an appeal against his, I'd like to hear from John.
I would,
John, give us your take on this. I mean, you would have to agree that the open display of items now is not very appealing. The question is, are they both necessary for construction, and is it temporary?
Yeah, I think there is I think there's probably 3 items in question. One would be the antique truck without the bed, but the bed has been removed. I think that they indicated they're soon to be sending it off to be painted and worked on. So there was a corresponding bed there. Currently, it is registered and has been, from what I understand, and has a plate on it, though an antique plate from Vermont. It is registered and plated. I know they did try to keep it as far away from the side yard as they could. The area where it butted the property, we had asked several times. I have made several site visits up there. And then the third item would be the other bed, which matches that, but is again another bed. The intent is to house all this equipment. There again, the same thing with the temporary structure. So again, the new garage is further from the side lot line in there. So again, the existing garage will be torn down, so all this stuff will move inside and away from there. And again, since the foundation has been done and backfilled, I haven't seen it backfilled, but I assume it is now. It was approved to be backfilled. They had said move the temporary outhouse back further away from the property as asked, and they intend to again cover there and get the stuff inside the garage as soon as it's built, from my understanding, as well as the stuff that's inside the existing garage now. The existing garage is probably a 1-bay garage. The new one is, I think it's either 2 or 3, so it's quite a bit larger.
In your estimation, is the new garage sized so that it could accommodate all these vehicles inside?
Yes, I would say that.
Let's hear from the Harrisons and then
But that would probably,
come back to the appellant.
I'm going to pull forward their attorney.
Sure.
And it looks like the Harrisons are also here.
Good evening, Chairman and the rest of the ZBA. Appreciate you taking the time on this matter this evening. My name is Ben Timon, and I represent Tiffany and Paul Harrison, who you see in one of the Hollywood squares here, having been promoted as well. I don't know if it's possible for me to share my screen because there is an aspect of the site plan that was part of the building permit application I think is relevant.
It's possible. You're the one who could tell me if it's possible. I mean, I'm sure we'd like to see it if you can.
Yeah, no, oh, good. I'm able to share the screen. Perfect. So I'm gonna pull up the May 2022 site plan. Let me shrink it a bit. Is that visible to the board?
A corner of it is. Yeah, now I guess it's coming into.
So this is the site plan that was provided with the building permit application. It also is in the Conservation Commission files because there is Conservation Commission approvals for this project as well. And this is a plan that was provided to the Wrens some time ago too. So what I had blown up was the material stockpile area, which I think you can see in the northeast corner of the Harrison's property, the Wrens being here to the east. And so the reason I want to point that out is that, and this goes to one of the three key findings that Inspector Hallen made, is that, this is a construction project. As the board knows, it's a project that was properly permitted by a permit issued in November of 2022. It's a small lot, but it's gone through all of the approvals, and part of this particular plan, as shown here on the site plan, is a material stockpile area, and that's where some of this construction debris is located, and that was to be expected. Now the Harrisons have moved a number of different things at the request of the Wrens and the building inspector as well. When Mrs. Wren says, that things are on her property line, I just want to be clear that everything is on the Harrison's property. So there's no allegation that I'm aware of that anything has, encroached upon the Wren's property. I would just point out too for the board that as you indicated, Chairman Chittick, the 14-day period that Attorney Mitchell uses as a basis for his appeal is, as you indicated, clearly not a mandatory period. That's the Vokes v. Avery W. Lowell Inc. decision actually from 1984, 18 Mass App Court 471 at page 479. So for almost 40 years, it's been the law in Massachusetts that the 14-day period is not mandatory. There is no constructive denial, which really seems to serve as the sole basis for this appeal. That decision says the failure of the building inspector to respond to the plaintiff's request for zoning enforcement within the period of time in that case was of no legal consequence. So as far as that particular basis, it isn't a basis for the appeal. But on the substance, respectfully, the three issues I think have been fully addressed, and obviously we are in full support of what the building inspector determined here after visiting the site on multiple occasions and having multiple conversations with my clients. So those three issues were, number one, whether the white truck is registered, and the bylaw provision that Attorney Mitchell referenced talks about unregistered automobiles. It doesn't talk about uninspected, or is it, can it run? It talks about, is it registered? It is registered, as Inspector Hallen has validated. And also it's a vintage truck that is under, renovation. It does have a windshield, contrary to a comment earlier, but it's being restored. It's a vintage truck that's being restored. So that issue seems to have been satisfied because Inspector Hallen has verified that it is inspected. The second issue was whether the temporary garage extension that Paul Harrison erected as really a substitute for a pod. This is just a temporary shed trailer where he can place construction materials during this project. Whether that was properly permitted, on that one, Inspector Hallen asked the Harrisons to go ahead and seek a temporary permit for that structure. They did so, and it's been issued. So that second issue seems to be resolved. And then the third issue is, again, on this issue of construction debris. And as Inspector Hallen said in his March 22nd letter, the blue truck bed on sawhorses was being used, according to Mr. Harrison, who's here and can attest to this, but Inspector Hallen attested to it as well, to store construction materials for the project. So again, this is in the stockpile area, and it's part of a construction project that's on its way to being completed. And, frankly, we don't really see any substantive merit at all to this appeal. And as to the actual basis of the appeal, which was filed, I guess just coincidentally was filed on the same date, March 22nd, citing a failure to respond within 14 days as the date of Inspector Hallen's response. I'm not sure if the Wrens were so concerned about the 14 days, I'm not sure why they waited until March 22nd to say, oh, there's no response within 14 days. They happened on the same day, but that procedural argument also bears no legal weight. So that's the position of the Wrens. They're here and I think would like the opportunity, if the board would allow, to say a word or two, and then also they can answer any questions you have, including Mr. Dickey's question regarding what's the ultimate fate of the blue truck bed. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, let's promote the Harrisons. And you've got the floor. But you're muted. There you go.
Sure. Yeah, so as Ben has just said, the white truck it's an antique truck. It's a restoration project. It's going to have a spot in the garage once the garage is complete. It's one of the reasons why we're building the garage. And we're utilizing the truck bed to store building materials. It's a good spot to keep them up off the ground and keep them dry. So even though the truck bed is there, it's in the construction stockpile area, and we are using it to stockpile construction materials and parts and materials that are pulled off the house and whatnot, and new materials that we're bringing in. So
there was also, though, I think when I went by, it was a kind of a yellow lawnmower or something that looked pretty inoperable. Am I right, or am I?
Yes, that's actually an antique lawnmower as well. So
Tractor.
it's an antique tractor actually. So
I've got
yes.
some of those, but I still believe I'll get them to run, but I don't know. I wish you well on that one. But why don't you answer Mike Dickey's question? Mike, why don't you give us your perspective again, or your question rather?
Yeah, I guess I think I said something along the lines of, presumably the garage is being built to store something. Is the plan, once it's complete, to store all of the equipment and other accoutrements that are now kind of placed around the property? And I guess the other question I'd like to know is, when was the construction on the garage started, and is there a proposed finish date when presumably there'll be some storage space for some of the stuff that's now in the yard?
Yeah, okay, that's a good question. The garage is definitely big enough to be able to put these things away. It's a 3-car garage and it has a workshop attached at the back. So the 3-car garage is for parking, and then the workshop at the back is for working on projects. The truck would be one of the projects. The lawn tractor would be another project. So yes, we've started on the garage, and we plan to continue working on the garage until it is finished. We're looking to have that done in the next 12 months. And yes, once it's completed, we'll be able to put things away into the garage. We're also doing work on the house. But yeah, we'll continue going with the house after 12 months. But at the moment, our schedule to have the garage completed is 12 months.
Will the garage be capable of storing construction materials still to be used on the unfinished house, or will those be outside, would you guess?
It would probably be used it would be, some of the area of the garage would be used as a workshop area in conjunction with doing work on the house. Some materials would be stored inside the house and some materials would be stored outside. Usually when you have a truck deliver a pallet load of materials, it sort of gets dropped outside. But yeah, we'd be able to move some things into the garage. But we still plan to utilize the stockpile site area to store materials.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead,
Sorry, when was the construction started?
Oh, I'm sorry. The kickoff was 5th of January this year.
And when was the building? What's the date of the? Because I don't have the plan in front of me, but you submitted a plan for a construction of a new garage. When was that done?
The
I have those dates in front of me. The plan is dated May of 2022. And that was for conservation. The building permit was issued November 21st of 2022.
Okay. Makes sense. So it's been going on for 6 months, basically, or you've had the permit for 6 months and you've been constructing for 4 months now, roughly.
It was difficult to start in the middle of winter, so we did hold off until a little bit better weather, until we knew that we'd get a good run at it. So yeah, we waited until January to start it.
The other board members, we'll come back to John, but
Yeah, I have I guess, an observation. I think there's a fine line that is probably in the eye of the beholder between junk and antiques. But I think in this case, we can give the benefit of the doubt to the antique classification. The problem that I have is that if the truck bed, the blue one, is being used for storage of materials, it's a structure. And structure shouldn't be in the setback.
why can't, so to Dave's point, why can't you move the truck into the rear middle of your lot? Why does it have to be right next to the Wren's house?
It's at the very rear of our property. So it is further from the street and more difficult to see from the street. So the idea was that we'd have it on the back of our property line, which is trying to keep the place tidy from people looking in from the street, I guess. So if I was to move it into the middle of the yard, then it would be a lot more highly visible from passers-by.
It also would impede our children being able to play outside. So we have a trampoline, we have children coming through the yard. So we're trying to keep the construction materials contained to an area.
Which is in the setback, certainly.
I'd like to also make the comment that we actually are living in the house while we do this construction work. So we are planning to keep the place looking tidy and respectable. You know, as we live here with our 2 children. So, you know, we like to keep all of the construction materials tucked away if we can and not have them strewn around in the middle of the yard.
Just an observation. I mean, I'd worry less about passersby and more about my neighbors in terms of, you know, what's visible and what's intrusive. I mean, a passersby is likely not even part of the neighborhood, could be, but there's also an undercurrent here, but I want to hear from.
Can I make a comment about
Sure.
that though? So the material stockpile section is at the back of our property. The Wrens own a 60-foot strip of land behind that. It is far away from their house, and actually with our single existing garage, not even that visible. So Mrs. Wren and the Wrens would have to walk around to that section of the yard to be able to see this, which is what they've done in this case. So, I mean, it is as far away from their house as possible within our property line. It's not close to their house. It's not really impeding their activity. They have a 60-foot strip of land behind our house that is the location of this stockpile.
I hear you. It's also sort of a visual issue, but the other thing that I think Mike was getting at is how long is this likely to go on? I mean, if it's a all hands on deck project and proceeding apace, it's one thing. You can sort of see the end down the road. If it's you know, a little bit here and a little bit there, and it starts to drift into 2, 3, 4 years of project, I think that's probably unacceptable in terms of the bylaws. Now, we were not deliberating that point or questioning veracity. I'm just making an observation that obviously any construction is going to be messy, but people try to be expeditious about it. And,
Yeah.
and that's all.
I would not like it to go for 2, 3, or 4 years either.
No, I mean, nobody really would. I mean, I'm just, I guess, making a point.
But these material stockpile areas, right, like you identified on the plan, because, you know, the photos that we were provided are a lot of, you know, to David's points, antiques or, you know, truck beds, things of that nature. Now, by putting, you know, 2x4 or a piece of wood into those objects, you know, I guess what I'm asking is, what are you considering this material stockpile area? Like what types of things in it? We'd be used to seeing like crushed stone that's being, you know, put into a trench, or soils that are stockpiled. And I would question if they have to be put into these types of objects. I would think they'd be more accessible to the construction if they were, you know, put in that stockpile area as dictated on the plan, but in an actual pile. And then, you know, we've even seen things where, you know, those piles create dust in the summertime. They sometimes have to be hydroseeded to, you know, contain dust, things of that nature. But, you know, from what I'm gathering, part of your explanation of these objects is that you're putting some of these materials into them, which is making them part of that material stockpile area. Is that your interpretation of it?
Yeah, that is correct. So there's 2 truck beds there. Both are, one is a truck bed that goes with the truck, and the other truck bed is parts because one of the truck beds is rusted and needs to be repaired. So I'm going to make 2 truck beds into one good truck bed. At the moment, the truck beds are in the material stockpile site, and one of the truck beds is filled with rough cut lumber, which is seasoning. So it's drying out. It needs to dry out it needs a dry place to stack and dry, and that will be used in the house when we renovate the house. And the other truck bed that is also in the material stockpile area, I have just been using to throw offcuts in. I have my drop saw set up, and as I cut through lumber and whatnot, you know, I throw the shortened lengths in there or any offcuts that collect in there, as sort of just a temporary spot to put things and sort of shuffle things around so that it gets it out of the way, it keeps things neat. I'm not tripping over things. So I'm kind of utilizing two things in the one area.
One of the gray areas, and whether we'll, you know, resolve it tonight or not, I don't know. But our table of uses says that automotive repair garages are not allowed in the residential zone. And so if you're repairing on an automobile, and the truck is certainly automotive, it's not allowed. And as an automotive graveyard and another junkyard, you'd expect not to be allowed, and that's true, it's not allowed. But repair work is not allowed. This doesn't say whether it's repairs of your own equipment or repairs for hire. The bylaw is vague on that, but I think you've got to be sensitive to the fact that these kind of things don't go on in residential districts in Cohasset. These kind of uses, I'm hard pressed to remember many. I can remember a few, and I can remember a couple that were shut down because people were being a little too enthusiastic about repair work. It upset the neighborhood, which is one of the premises or the purposes of a zoning bylaws, to protect the neighborhood's value and the quality of life. So I'm not even sure you qualify, but we can set that aside for the moment. But I think time is essential. I think if we were to go ahead in this, I would certainly insist that construction be completed as of X date, or certain fines be levied. I'm still not satisfied with storing trucks and things right essentially on a lot line, but I don't know. Dave.
Woody, I think in the table of uses, the bylaw requires a special permit even for a temporary structure for storage.
Yeah.
Of materials or equipment. So, you know, just the fact that it's there, technically, I think requires a special permit, regardless of whether it's in the setback. And I don't see an exception in the bylaw that says that you can put a structure in the setback.
And
if you're going to take it out at some point, you know.
Yeah. And a structure, as we know, is differentiated from a building. And Dave is right about structures, but you know, a building has a roof and things like that. A structures provide support for, in this case, lumber, be it fresh cut or not. You know. Anyway. Attorney, I don't know. I haven't heard from Attorney Mitchell in quite a while. I assume he's still. Yes, there you are. Would you like to chime in at this point? I think this is sort of a back and forth, and I'd like to get John Hallen's take. But
well, as you said before, I think time is one of the keys here. I mean, that truck's been there, according to Barbara, for over a year, and it seems to construct a garage is going to take, you know, a year and 6 months, or however long it's going to take, is a little bit excessive. So, I mean, in terms of time, that's an issue with these things that are on the property line, and the fact that they're on the property line in the rear of the property doesn't really make any difference to my client. She uses the back part of her property for gardening, so she is back there and she can see it. And you know, in terms of the storing of the construction material within the blue bed, you know, I think that probably does qualify as a structure under the bylaw and therefore requires a special permit. So, for a variety of reasons, I think these things have to be moved. And, there has to be a date, I think, from the board in order to have that done.
That would seem logical, yeah, and just to help complete the thought about a structure, is a combination of materials combined at a fixed location to give support or shelter. And it can be of any number of things, but it's at a fixed location to give support and shelter. And I think in this case, the flatbeds are serving, as Dave points out, as structures, and structures in setbacks and so on and so forth are not allowed. Which means that they are not allowed without a special permit. And that special permit has to be predicated on any detriment to the neighborhood, either visual or physical or noise or light or anything else that may spill over property lines. So I don't know. I remain concerned here that this project could go on for quite a while, and it's intruding really on setbacks which are designed to protect neighboring properties. But John Hallen, where are you on this one so far? I don't think they've complied entirely with the letter of your March 22nd letter. I mean, I think that might have been their intention, but.
Yeah, thanks. I know it's we're probably delving into the gray area, if you will. It's not a black and white situation for anyone. That we could be, there is our sawhorse is a structure that supports stuff that we put on there. So it's a fine line. Is changing oil in your home garage, is that a business? No, so I think the board might be leaning more towards, I think both parties' best interest might be here is to again, get the structure up in a timely, efficient manner, and a lot of this stuff will be taken care of by storing the equipment inside. And this would kind of start to bring some, the stability to the neighbors. There is a construction takes time and stuff like that, but I think a reasonable effort is and should be made by the Harrisons, to get that structure built. So it's, sounds like if the board might request that timeline, at least something we can monitor and shoot for to get this, to get everyone's concerns, met. I think certainly the Wrens and Attorney Mitchell would be, satisfied with again, completion of the building and getting the equipment in question indoors, to help protect them and everyone, and as well as the Harrisons. So, I think as far as a violation, I think we just want to maybe step back and just keep in mind that the goal is to get this project done so that they can be there, and maybe we can, can ask the people to kind of, give us a guideline as to when that could be done, so that we could expect this to go from a temporary situation of outdoor storage to a permanent situation of indoor storage.
Yeah, I've heard kind of a different, Attorney Simon, the applicant, Paul Harrison said, maybe a year or so. Are you, by the way, Mr. Harrison, the contractor yourself, or is this a do-it-yourself?
Well, I'm the homeowner, and I'm GCing the project myself. I've got some experience in carpentry. My trade is carpentry.
No, it's fine. I'm not here to, question your credentials. I'm just wondering if the burden of completion is on your shoulders alone, or are there crews who are there to help or to do the work?
I will have crews there, and I'll also be doing some of the work myself.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine, particularly if you're capable of it. It's a good way to save money. Attorney Timon, what kind of a timeline would you find maybe not enthusiastically acceptable, but minimally acceptable? Because if this goes on too long, I mean, we're going to be back here and probably, with a little more grumpy than we are right now. So.
No, I understand that, Mr. Chairman, and my clients have indicated that they have every expectation that the garage project will be completed within a year. I mean, obviously, things can arise, crews not showing up and so on. And so, I think if the board were inclined to afford them that period of time, and after that period, if for some reason something hasn't been completed and there's still materials in the stockpile area that shouldn't be there in the board's judgment or in Inspector Hallen's judgment, then we could come back, we could seek an extension or something like that. But I would just note again that it's an active construction project, as the board understands. There is this stockpile area that was pre-designated in the setback area, and I think that would allow all of these same construction materials to be there and be on the ground. And it just happens through kind of the idiosyncrasies of some of the things that are in the property, that blue flatbed is being used for that purpose. I think it's I understand that by the letter of the structure definition that maybe that could be shoehorned into a structure. I have my doubts as to whether it truly is a structure. And I would also just note too the bylaw provision that Attorney Mitchell has relied on here, 344.3C. I mean, it talks about discarded articles and materials that are ready for destruction or have been stored or collected for salvage or conversion to some other use. And again, these are, Paul Harrison described it, these are byproducts of the construction. So, this isn't a junkyard, it's not an auto repair facility, it's a project that's been permitted. And yes, it's ruffling some feathers of the neighbors on, what are two tightly bound up lots. But that's a long-winded way of saying, Mr. Chairman, that my clients definitely are interested in getting this completed as quickly as they can, and they set out a 12-month objective for doing that.
Okay, I mean, and Attorney Mitchell, what might your client, and you may want to certainly confer, so we're not going to close the hearing tonight, but with your client, but what conditions, both time and visual, would you find acceptable? Again, not in the ideal, but in the I can live with that kind of premise.
I'm sorry, I had my hand raised, but
I'm sorry.
No one was
Okay.
calling on me. I mean, these are cast off flatbed, pieces of trucks. And I just where on any construction site would they be used to store materials? I don't see that. And I do see them from my property, not just from the rear of my property, but from the center of my property. They are highly visible. And I feel that they are cast off vehicle parts and not related to the construction site.
Okay, and what I'm seeking, I think, is there a compromise? And it doesn't have to be developed down to the letter tonight, but is there a willingness to think about if this project could proceed expeditiously and certain accommodations made? Can you, Mrs. Wren and others, kind of live with this for a while, not forever, not the way it looks exactly today, but as a transition? I don't know. I'm not the one to suggest the conditions, but I think there may be sort of some mid ground here, but not anyway, I don't know how the board feels. I
Would a fence make a difference?
would a what?
A fence make a difference?
I don't know.
I think that's really not the issue. The issue is the bylaw and the junk on the property.
I
But
think
if that junk, just to play devil's advocate, were to be removed permanently within X period of time, I don't, let's not worry about what. Would that make a difference if you knew it was
Yes.
going to go away?
Yes.
I don't know. Are there thoughts on the part of the board or John? I mean, is there something that we could do? That wouldn't injure either side unnecessarily. I'm not looking for penalties here. I'm looking for a way to kind of compromise and kind of hold my nose maybe, but be done with what's offensive in a reasonable period of time or
So may I offer just one more piece of information
Sure.
that has not come up yet, is that the white vintage truck, which is a restoration project, and obviously beauty is in the eye of the beholder, is actually already scheduled to be spray painted. So it's in the process of being restored, and within a number of months. Now, as you may be aware, these spray painting stores take their time, and so we're on the schedule. We've been booked in for a couple of months already, but that is going to disappear and come back as a shiny white truck that no one should hopefully be offended by, and that will be in the next couple of months. I don't know the exact date, but as a next step, I'm happy to find out that exact date, but that will take away the whole, junk of the antique white truck. So that is
it's gonna
something
be
I
in
can
one
offer
piece?
now, that
Sorry,
is
what,
going
Dave?
to happen.
It's going to come back in one piece?
It is going to come back in one piece. Yes.
Matt, where do you come out?
Yeah, I mean, like I stated, and I was just taking a look back at actually, I'll just briefly share my screen too on the photos, which were, are you able to see my screen now? Or no?
It may be on its way, but I'm still seeing you and everybody else.
Let's see. Maybe it won't let me. Actually, now can you see it?
Oops, wait a minute. There we go. You did it.
I think, and this is the white truck, right, that was referenced. What I don't want to encourage is to have, like these, because they're not associated directly with construction, for things to be put in them to justify it as a material stockpile. So just looking at some of the stuff that's out there, it does look like it's not actively involved with construction, which would, in my mind, have us looking towards, well, what can be tidied up, what can be improved along that space, so that the material stockpile is more utilized for, its intended purpose, which was materials directly involved with construction. I think like this picture here, like putting wood into the back of the truck is a little bit, of a stretch for me as far as it being involved in construction. At the same point,
It could be put on sawhorses.
if somebody's looking at a pile of sawdust and materials on the ground, and we were looking at pictures of that, and we looked at the site plan and said, well, you know, there's a material stockpile that was permitted in that area and this stuff comes and goes, I think I could justify it a little bit more. I think I am having a hard time with the objects, if you will, being, you know, kind of referred to as this material stockpile area. So I would think that maybe that, you know, and I did hear Mrs. Harrison say that, you know, the truck is on its way to be refreshed and would probably then maybe be a different location. I think maybe they could take a harder look at, you know, what objects along that area could be more strategically placed, or you know, maybe aren't needed for the direct construction, and then, you know, propose kind of an arrangement with their neighbor and us. But that's kind of where I come out on it.
Hey, Mike, where do you come out in this? You've got a lot of planning board experience and other kinds of experiences that may not directly deal with this, but certainly indirectly.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess this is kind of unique in my experience. And that makes it a little difficult for me to kind of tease out. I guess and you know, no offense intended the Harrisons, but you know, if my neighbors were kind of storing a bunch of stuff around the yard, and you know, well, maybe it'll take a year, but maybe it'll take longer, and we've already been at it for 6 months, I guess I'd probably be pretty upset. So you know, it seems unfair to me that you're kind of taking advantage of the goodwill of your neighbors. And to be honest, I guess I sympathize with their patience running thin. And you know, you can either do the job or you can't. And frankly, I think 18 months to build a garage seems to me to be too long. So, you know, you should either pick up the pace or get additional help to get it done in a timely fashion, so as to try and continue to maintain some kind of good relations with your neighbors, because frankly, I think that's pretty important. But, you know, my opinion.
This is well said.
Or you could find some other place to store the antiques.
Yeah, offsite, possibly.
Woody, just a quick comment, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So perhaps I think we're leaning. You guys have brought up some great questions on both sides. Perhaps what we could do is, you know, on or about July 1 and September 1st, we could have a couple of site inspections, at least see what has progressed. There was some stuff that, you know, for example, we know the truck is being removed to be painted, so we can get the barriers. We'll, you know, again, see what the framing status is of the building. So at least there might be some updates to kind of base our status on there in a more manageable way. You know, if that's the time we could, you know, kind of set some other sites for September. Is the roof on? Is it, you know, ready to just show some of the stuff, so we could get some time frame on, if we could maybe, you know, kind of to keep things, because I think everyone wants things to move along there to get there. So perhaps, you know, between now and July, we could give them some time to get this moved along, do our inspection, get an update as to where we're at and the status, and then again to see some improvement and you know, to see that continue. So at least we can put some steps in place or mechanisms to, you know.
Yeah, we'd have to agree
in
on those mechanisms. It's more though, John, you know, than just a conversation and, oh gosh, we've slipped behind or we're on schedule. I mean, I think as Mike says, it doesn't take a year and a half to do a garage. I've never heard of that. I mean, there could be supply chain issues, you know, the doors garage doors don't come in or windows, but, and I know that's been a problem, but this project has to be moved along quickly to get all this stuff off the out of sight. I mean, it's just, I mean, you know, whether it's
Yeah,
an
and I think-
antique or a wreck, it doesn't much matter. If it looks like it's not being used and it's derelict and sitting there, it's not acceptable in terms of the bylaws. I mean, that's my point of view. Now, yeah, you've had, Mrs. Wren, Barbara, you've had your hand up.
Oh, that was before, but let me lower it. I said what I wanted to say. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if, and I'll turn to you, Attorney Mitchell. Would it be at all productive for you, for both sides to get together, perhaps with John, and say, look, what is a reasonable and acceptable pick up the pace time frame and acceptable staging of materials so that you know, we don't go too much in one direction as opposed to the other. This is a project. It's going to have materials. It's going to look like hell from time to time. It's going to be messy, but that's no excuse for taking an excessive amount of time. And maybe there are things that can be done either on or off site in terms of. But this board can't negotiate those sort of things. I mean, I think both sides have to say, look, I can, my clients or whatever, your clients can participate, but they can live with this or they can't. You know, we're either between a rock and a hard place, or we think there's a way that we could coexist on a reasonable time frame. And if something goes awry, we'll have some, as John Hallen says, some steps so to signal that things are gone off track, and we can figure out whether that's an issue of will and intention, or supply chain, or you know, the vicissitudes of construction.
I'd be happy to sit down with John and Ben and see if we can work something out. It's always better than not.
Yeah, I guess what I'd suggest is if you could do that between now and June, we can continue the hearing, and there could be a report back. And I want John part of it because he's going to be the enforcement agent in this case. You know, we think we have a compromise that we can live with. That's you know, a good compromise. Nobody gets everything. You know, there's sort of a disappointment in a good compromise on both sides, but we think it's livable, and if we stick to it, you know, this will all be over. Go ahead.
I have another question. What's the upside down truck bed? This one here.
That is the truck bed that's off the antique truck that's being restored. And I'd also just like to point out that these photos were taken before we started construction of the job, so we're just moving things around the yard at that point.
So what's this truck bed?
Which one are you pointing to now?
This white one next to the frame of the truck.
It's the same one.
Yeah, that's all part of the same truck.
It's
Okay,
the
so
same
these-
one, just moved.
It's this, yeah, it's the same truck bed. It's just been moved around.
Okay.
There were recent,
There
there
seems
were,
to be
oh,
a
pardon me.
couple of photos taken on different dates there.
There were photos submitted that I took on April 22nd that are online on the town's website.
Mhm. Well, I think, you know, it's be nice if a compromise gets worked out that satisfies everybody. But you know, if I was looking out my window, I'd be thinking my neighbors have a bunch of junk on the property line. And whether they call it storage for a construction site or antiques or whatever they call it, is junk that I have to look at every day. And I think your neighbors have been fairly tolerant thus far. And if it were me, I wouldn't, if I bought its storage for the construction stuff, I want you to get a special permit like the bylaw says, and I'd want it out of the
Out of the setbacks.
So, you know, you can, I would suggest that you make every effort to accommodate your neighbor here, including getting the stuff stored offsite, the vehicle stuff. But this, I mean, I understand your position, but I don't buy it.
And it just doesn't happen in Cohasset. I mean, I can't, you know, there probably, there's always an exception to the rule. And somewhere there is an exception or two. I won't give you any hints, but I really think this is in opposition or inconsistent, I would say, with the kind of residential neighborhoods we have in Cohasset. So you folks all have a sense of where this board is leaning, and it's to let's fix this as quickly as possible. But we're not trying to entirely side with one party and not give a bit to the other. I'd like to see a compromise here. And whether one side has to give a little more than the other is probably in the eye of the beholder. But I'd suggest that we continue this until June with great expectation that we could get a status report. We either have come to a meeting of the minds, or we're 80% there, or there's no way in hell one side or the other can give, and so then it'll be up to us to impose certain conditions. And if that's where it comes out, I'm quite prepared to do so, but I'd much rather see harmony reign and a realistic plan. I mean, you don't want me to be the clerk of the works and set a timetable, because I'm totally unequipped for that. So would that be acceptable to both attorneys and you, John?
That's fine with me.
Yes.
Yes, I'm available.
Okay, great. Would that be, if that's acceptable to the board, I would make a motion to continue this hearing until June 6th, primarily to deal with a project plan going forward.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, Woody Chidick, aye.
Dave McMorris, aye.
Harold Dickinson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Mike Dickey, aye.
Okay,
Watkins, aye.
great. So the board's voted 6-0 to meet with you all. And it would be better to don't inundate us with preliminary drafts of things. I mean, kind of work this through yourselves as feel free to, John, to bring anybody else you wish to into this discussion, or discussions, but what I'd like to see is kind of the best possible work product that can be done in the next 3+ weeks.
All right, if I could just ask the attorneys to reach out, and we can.
Okay, I think we're agreed. We're going to give it the old try, give it a shot, and
Thank you.
so that's been done. So we will see you all next month.
Thanks for your time,
Chairman.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, it's a complex situation, and I don't think either party has a monopoly on being right here. So we shall go forward. Cassandra, there are only two other things: meeting minutes, and we should probably approve the June 6th meeting. Oh my God, we probably should have done that first. Is everybody okay in June 6th for a June 6th meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cross our fingers. All right.
How
about the meeting?
I may have a conflict. I have
Okay.
a conference, I think, in San Diego. So I think I'm flying out Monday night, the 5th.
Okay. I know how badly you're going to want to be patched in on Zoom, but you may have to. Well, we'll have a
Yeah,
quorum.
no, I I could probably, actually come to think of it, I could probably do that. I could at least give it a try anyway.
Yeah, it'll be cocktail hour. It'll be a little before dinner, California time, so. We shall see. All right, well, I hope so. I hope we can get you there. But with that being done, I think we're set on the 6th, and are we prepared to vote on the meeting minutes from April? I had one small edit that I gave Cassandra, but other than that, it looked fine.
Yeah, I had no problems with them.
I'm
Dave,
good.
what, Matt, Charlie?
Fine.
Good with it, yeah.
I had no problems. I wasn't at the meeting, but I certified that I watched all 3 hours and 19 minutes on fast. No,
Bless your soul.
it only took me 2 hours. I had it on double speed though. I think we should do all of our meetings on double speed. But yes.
Speak quick.
It was very quick.
Where are
All
we
2
on-
hours still, but it was, I did speed it up. Somebody told me the trick to speed up the.
Everybody talks like this, they go really fast.
Well, you can't go that fast, but you were speeding up. You and Adam Brodsky were like, I was like, good, they just have to do this every time.
That dock on Nichols Road or Jerusalem Road. That
The what on?
dock,
Oh, the dock, yes.
it's been continued, but did they withdraw the special permit application, or are they going to have a concurrent variance and special permit application?
I believe the intent is that they're going to have a concurrent variance. I received notification today from Adam Brodsky's office that they have sent that application via FedEx, and it should be arriving tomorrow. So I haven't really seen it yet, but it is coming, and I haven't received any information about them withdrawing the
Okay,
special
so-
permit application.
So will that be on for June?
Yes,
You think they'll be ready?
I presume so.
Okay. All right, yeah, we've got a few of these sort of staging in the background, but Black Horse Lane being a big one, and I remain puzzled about Atlantica, but John's gone. At what point does that become abandoned? I wondered. That's just a hypothetical question. I'm not drawing a conclusion, but
Atlantica?
well, that site. I mean, nothing is going on there as far as I know. I think they've got chapter 91 okay.
Well, how long's permit's good for 2 years, right?
Yeah. I've heard that the Salt House may not open this year because they have a common kitchen with Atlantica, which has not been built.
I heard the old Salt House is looking at some kind of, food truck as an option. That's what I heard, but
Wow.
that's scuttlebutt. So please don't.
Yeah,
stop lining up
absolutely. I
down there.
just, yeah, so they've but they probably got another year to run before, and they can request a continuance,
Right,
an
they can get an
extension,
extension.
but not forever and a day, but.
Mhm.
Oh, well. Anyway, okay, I don't know. And I heard last night that somebody brought up again the clever notion of using the Oaks as a town hall. Cassandra gets the swimming pool area up at the top level there.
Can I have the dock?
Yeah, okay. I wanted the dock.
There's enough room for both our boats, Woody.
Okay, yeah, I guess you're right.
Not to interrupt, but I don't think you technically voted on the minutes.
Okay, I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of April that were in our packet.
Second,
All in favor, Woody Chitik, aye?
Dave McMorris, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Mike Dickey, aye.
It's
Beautiful. And so I'd make a motion to adjourn. And if it's I'm inclined to see Chris Senior and maybe Jack Creighton and say, is there a way? I would personally like the option of meeting in person, and if somebody can't, or the audience, doesn't want to sit around for 3 hours in town hall, that's perfectly fine to have a hybrid. But I do sort of miss the efficiency of pointing to something and then everybody sees the same thing and everything, but.
I just have a question. Did 63 Nichols, the retaining wall, is that gonna go out for a draft?
That was going to be my next question is, do we want to assign the draft for 63 Nichols and the 46 Black Road appeal?
Pretty good notes on the Nichols one. If you want
Okay, you want to do Nichols?
Sure.
to take it.
Okay, and 62 Spring Street, I mean, they're going to give us statistics, but I don't think there's anything of substance there. It's just that we need a plan.
Yeah, I just, on that Spring Street one, that the plot plan didn't show the neighboring properties. I don't want to cost these people any more money, but it might have actually helped them if they could, if the properties on the either side would help them average to have a shorter front setback, but it's just we still need to keep track of those plot plans when they come in.
Yeah, I walked that occasionally. I just can't remember. I mean, these houses were, my guess is, all built by the same person back in the day. I mean, they've been extensively overhauled, but Cassandra, how about asking that they add the just the outline of the two neighboring properties, but including a porch. I mean, I want the structure, not the just the dwelling.
I thought I had asked them originally for that, but I can follow up on that.
I'll bet you
as
did.
well.
I'll bet you did, but do it again and tell them that this might be to their advantage. It was going to cost them a little something, but we don't need an architectural work of art here.
So I don't understand why the engineers don't do it as a matter of course, because they know
They
it's
keep asking for it, and they go back and have to do it. I mean, I bet they're not giving their clients even the option. They're explaining. Such as with Roger Pompios. I don't see where he gets a 6-foot setback by averaging I don't know where he gets 2 properties.
well, I mean, you better show us.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
If it's not, if that's not the frontage, if the frontage is James Lane,
yeah,
then that's a sideline. It's not a front. So he doesn't get the benefit of the averaging.
right. He may, the 8-foot may be a little excessive. I think it's a 10-foot side setback, isn't it, in that area? That's a village. It's village business, I don't know. But yeah, that they seem to be all over the lots, and she didn't understand. Strict VB. Side setback is 10 feet. So if they're going from 10.1 to 8 feet, they're creating a nonconformity. And certainly by the law, I mean, that puts them into variance territory. Not that they couldn't qualify, but I think we would have to address that and deal with it. So anyway, we'll see. I think she's probably 2 hearings away. Next hearing will be, it's almost like a fresh hearing because her application doesn't match any of the drawings anyway. No, I mean, it's anyway. Okay, so what's 62? Who wants to do 62 Spring Street?
I think Charlie already with a
Charlie,
sign-
You assigned it.
Great, Charlie. Perfect. I knew you'd. Let's see. Okay, that's that. This one is still continuing. So everything else is in process. So those are just the two. So Matt and Charlie will give us kind of a briefish decisions. So I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
Moved and Oh, that's cute. The old high school trick. Okay. All in favor, Woody Chidikai.
Dave Morris, aye.
Well, Dickinson, aye.
Lee Darcey.
Michael Dickey, aye.
Matt Watkins, aye.
Great. Okay. Thanks, guys.